There's a lot of details. You can go to FairTax.org and research this and get into the weeds on the details as much as you want. But that's the basics of the fair tax. U.S. representatives, U.S. senators, they are in no position to grant favors to favored constituencies. They can no longer punish or reward individuals or groups of people with changes in the tax code under the fair tax. No longer would you have people demanding, "Show me your tax return." No longer would you have the federal government having all of this information on every aspect of your private financial life. You buy your toasters, you buy your groceries, you buy your automobiles, whatever. You pay the fair tax. And those things don't cost you any more than you're paying for them right now because the embedded taxes disappear. But guess what? You can go out and deposit $10,000 into your bank account and nobody reports it to the IRS because there is no IRS. It's gone. Oh, it'll be there for a couple of years if the fair tax is implemented, but only for the purpose of collecting past due taxes. The average American spends 55 hours a year just to do their taxes. That's over a week's work. No longer. You don't spend any time. You don't fill out a tax return on a postcard. You don't do a damn thing. You earn your money, you save your money, you invest your money, you spend your money. All as you see fit. Oh, but what about the tax accountants? What about accountants? I've talked to a lot of accountants about the fair tax. They say, you know what, Neal? With my education as a CPA, I have a lot better things to do with my knowledge than to help people fill out tax returns. Don't have a problem with the fair tax. Not at all. I actually saw somebody object to the fair tax earlier this week. Last week, on the basis that it would put tax law professors out of work. Oh yeah, that's a reason not to reform our tax laws. Congressman Linder, the man who first introduced the fair tax into Congress in 1999, he got a little phone call. He's sitting in his office. The secretary rings him. Congressman Linder, yes? There's somebody from the Internal Revenue Service here to see you. Oh, boy. Okay, send him in. The IRS agent comes in, sits down across the desk from Congressman Linder. Congressman, I just have to tell you, you have to get this fair tax enacted into law. If you knew the things that I know about the way the Internal Revenue Service abuses and punishes the people of this country, Congressman, you have to pass this legislation. Shortly after the Fair Tax book came out, I got a phone call from a politician in Brazil. Wish I could remember the name. I don't. But the conversation basically was, Mr. Boortz, in that nice Brazilian accent, I am running for the office of President of Brazil. And if I win, I would like to implement the fair tax in Brazil. Would you please either fly down here to talk to me or let a representative fly to America to talk to you to discuss this tax idea? Well, that was flattering, and I thought about it, but I said no. I said, ma'am, was a ma'am. Very frankly, my goal is to work for the enactment of the fair tax in the United States. Somewhere in the world, someday, somebody is going to implement this tax idea. I would like for it to be the United States. So I must respectfully decline. Thank you very much. End of conversation. Never heard from him again. But once again, let me make this clear. This is not going to happen unless the people of this country insist that is going to happen by putting the pressure on their legislators. We're talking tax reform right now, and it's disappointing, but the fair tax really isn't on the table. You know what? When the book came out, 2005, if you'd have had a big push for tax reform in the Congress in 2008, for instance, there would have been no way the fair tax wasn't at the top of everybody's mind, because the fair tax bumper stickers, the fair tax books, trucks driving down the highway with fair tax scrawled in the dirt on the back of the truck. We had rallies in Atlanta and elsewhere. 15,000 people showed up at a fair tax rally in Atlanta. In Orlando, 8,000 people on the streets of Orlando to scream, yell, and protest for the fair tax. But the momentum left. The momentum was gone because nothing really happened in Washington. I got called before a Senate Finance Committee one time to testify about the fair tax in Washington, D.C. The ombudsman for the Internal Revenue Service was testifying at the same hearing. He walked up to me before the hearing and he said, "You can't quote me on this, but this fair tax thing needs to be done." Nothing happened. It's complicated. You don't put $20 million of research into a tax reform proposal and have it simple. It's instantly easy to understand. It's not like, well, you have a flat tax and you pay 6%. So on a postcard, you put down what you earn, you multiply it by 6%, and you send it in. No, it's not that simple. That is a simple-minded solution for simple people. The fair tax is a tax proposal idea that would grow the American economy by leaps and bounds. Foreign businesses and corporations looking for ways to come to this country to do business, where they can do business with no tax component on capital, no tax component on labor. That is paradise for a businessman. But never forget, it would be the most massive transfer of power from the imperial federal government of the United States to the people in the history of this country, and that is not something that is going to happen at the hands of Congress alone. It has to happen in a revolutionary sense, with the people of this country saying, "Damn it, this is what we want, get it done." I've debated Yale law professors in New York City, former assistant treasury secretaries. They're sitting there with mountains of paperwork in front of them to tell me why the fair tax won't work. And I just sit there with the book in front of me and pound them into the dirt. Right now, I can't say that I'm hopeful because, well, Donald Trump doesn't have a damn thing to say about the fair tax. Mike Pence, the vice president, he was a sponsor. Do you see him bringing up the fair tax in the discussions in the White House about tax reform? No. And why not? Once again, it weakens the federal government. Those people don't do that. It takes you. It takes people like you calling your congressman, calling your senator. Damn it, how do you stand on the fair tax? Why isn't it at the forefront of the conversation up there in Washington, D.C. right now? The conversation about tax reform. Why not? Now you go to a bookstore or you go to Amazon.com, two books for you to read. The Fair Tax book by myself and John Linder. And the second book, The FairTax The Truth. Same two authors with help from now Congressman Rob Woodall, perhaps one of the most brilliant members of the U.S. Congress. Read them, absorb them. I had somebody tell me one time that they thought that the history of the United States income tax that I wrote and put in the Fair Tax book was the most interesting, informative history of the income tax in this country that they had ever read. You wouldn't believe some of the subterfuges that people in Washington used to get the income tax amendment passed, and then used to get the disastrous income tax withholding plan through Congress. Yeah, you overpay the IRS, they'll give you your refund at the end of the year, but they won't pay you any interest. You underpay the IRS, and you won't believe the interest they will charge. It's up to you, folks. The legislation is there. It's in the Congress right now. It just takes you to hammer your members of Congress to bring this thing into the public eye again, so that people like me and Congressman Linder and others can get out there, answer the critics, and push the legislation. Thank you so much. This is an hour. Thank you for listening. Think about it. Read the books. This would be a second American revolution, and it is something the hardworking people and the taxpayers of this country richly, richly deserve. Thank you for listening to the Sportscast, and as always, we'll talk to you later.